Hello again, and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is Jesse, and I am back for another event update video and a couple other topics I didn't get around to in the last update video because things just keep on happening. But the good news is the last couple of these event videos have been really kind of negative in a lot of ways, just because there's been closures and cancellations and drama and just other stupidity happening all the time. This video is pretty much going to be all positive and potentially positive stuff. I know, refreshing, right? I'm not going to do the whole intro spiel, the whole playlist thing, the Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday details stuff. Go check out another one of those update videos if you want more details just on general channel stuff. We're just going to get right into it here because I want to talk about a few different things, and including the Apple event that just happened today. There was enough in there that I think between a recent podcast episode I heard on iOS 18 and then the Apple event today, there's a few things that I really want to draw people's attention to that I think are going to be rather intriguing. At least I'm pretty intrigued about some of the stuff myself. So before we get into that, they just announced they're having a 9-minute PlayStation event tomorrow. Not going to do a separate video on that. We probably mostly know what that's probably going to be. Everyone's been rumoring the PlayStation 5 Pro for sometime this fall. Odds are they're going to announce it for release in the next couple weeks, couple months, whatever it happens to be. It's probably going to be very expensive. It's just going to be a hardware bump. I don't know if it's going to be any smaller than the ginormous monolith that is the original PlayStation 5 that I have. I don't know if it's gonna, be all digital or if it's gonna have like the PS5 Slim has got this modular design, I think, where you can get it diskless, and then if you want to add a drive later, there's like a part you can like remove and then put in the drive, I think is how it works. Um, but it's probably, considering I heard a news story within the last, earlier this morning or last night, that they're raising the price of the DualSense controllers only by like $5, but still, it's like, dude, usually after a console's been out for a while or technology's been out for a while, prices go down. But there's other things that have been doing that too. I remember when the Quest was cheaper, the Oculus or the Meta Quest, and they bumped the price on that a while ago. So yeah, things getting cheaper over time? Apparently not. There's really not much else to say. Like I said, I don't know what the price is going to be. I have to expect it's not going to be any lower than 500 if you're lucky, maybe 600. And I don't know about you, but I'm not in the market for it. I'm perfectly happy. I don't have a 4K TV or monitor. I don't necessarily care about 4K. OLED would be nice, but 1080p and a better frame rate, and I'm perfectly fine with what I have. So that's going to be happening. I don't know. I forget. I didn't even look at what time it was happening, but it's a 9-minute event, and I'm sure we'll find out by tomorrow. So check your social media or YouTube of choice for that. Meta Connect, of course, is happening later this month, and I'm hoping to hear some good news on AI improvements coming to the Meta glasses, because I really, really like the form factor of these Meta Ray-Ban glasses. They're light, they're comfortable, they kind of look and feel just like regular glasses. Check out my hardware review I did was that a couple months ago already? Yeah, I think it was. It was like the end of May. Damn. Time flies, guys. The hardware is there, and if they can get rid of some of their restrictions on what their AI can do compared to some of the blindness apps that are out there, if they can bring that natively into, better being able to describe things, these things are going to be even a better affordable option than they are now for low vision and even blind users. So we'll see what we're going to find out about that. AstroBot. I have a video recorded for it. I'm gonna hopefully upload and get that released for Wednesday. That is, again, you had the news about Concord, and I forgot to even mention last video, there was another game that Visions of Mana, the Mana series, Secret of Mana, and I forget what the other ones are. Um, literally the day the game launched, the poor developers got notified, oh yeah, by the way, congratulations on the launch. We're closing your company. Um, God, not even time to celebrate your game's release because people worked so hard on, just any game that gets released or any tech that gets released. That sucks hardcore. I forgot to mention that in the plethora of horrible news last video, update video. But on the opposite end, boy howdy, AstroBot is a really, really cool game. I covered the Astro's Playroom when I got my PlayStation 5, and I still say those two games are just the perfect showcase of the PlayStation 5, the legacy and history of PlayStation without feeling super cheesy. It's the best use of the DualSense controller by far. Um, it's just a delightful game. It's fun. If you're young, you can play it. If you're older, you can play it. Um, it has, some challenging parts to it. There are a few areas where low vision accessibility wise, I've been like, I wasn't quite sure about a distance for certain jumps or obstacles or whatever. But I've gotten around them so far. But Nintendo has their Super Smash Brothers series, which is kind of their all things that celebrate Nintendo. And people have said that Sony haven't really had a consistent mascot over the years. They've had Crash Bandicoot, they've had Sly Cooper, they've had Jak and Daxter, or anything Spyro, a few others, but nothing really that just kind of like Sony's Mario. And I think that Astrobot is a good mascot for, especially Sony really likes to focus on their technical specs and all that stuff, and Astrobot being kind of techie themed and this little robot dude. I think he fits that pretty well, and it would be so easy to, with all of the little Astrobots that you rescue in that game, there's some generic ones, but then there are these kind of VIP Astrobots that are kind of themed around other Sony franchises. Your common ones, some deep cuts in there, and it would be so easy to kind of make it super cheesy and really forced. It's like, oh, look at how cool we are. We're Sony. But it doesn't do that at all. Like, it seems more endearing than it does patronizing, It seems more endearing and just fun. And it's really cool. I really like the game. There's two things that sort of disappoint me, and it's not really to do with the game itself per se. The two things that really disappoint me about Astrobot is A, that it isn't more blind accessible. Like I said, there's even a few areas low vision wise where I think either the contrast could be better or something could stand out or maybe be assisted a little bit more on where to go. Um, but we've had a pretty good run of some first party Sony accessibility features in games and just design. Now, the design of the game is actually pretty decent as far as like accessibility and the way the camera follows things and everything. Um, you can turn off the motion controls if you don't want them or can't use them due to like a mobility impairment. I forgot to mention that in the review video that I recorded or the spotlight video. Um, but it is disappointing that blind players are not able to play Astrobot just because it's so whimsical. It's just cool. Um, And my other disappointment is more to do with how AstroBot calls out all these other Sony franchises. There was a post I saw on Twitter the other day about like Sony was saying, well, we don't, we got Concord and it failed and this isn't doing well and Bungie isn't doing so well and this, that, and the other thing. And we don't have, we don't know that we have a lot of franchises and intellectual property that we can, release games for. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Have you not paid attention to your first party exclusive AstroBot franchise? The games that it references, I mean, there's anything from like Ape Escape and God of War, and I saw a VibRibbon thing, believe it or not, in there. VibRibbon, anybody remember that? I got that on the Vita. Um, and what makes me sad about it is, like I said, there's so many Sony franchises and games from the last 4 or 5 generations that it calls back to, and they're sleeping on so many of these. You could bring back Jak and Daxter, you could bring back Crash Bandicoot. Well, they've done that a little bit, but you could bring Jak and Daxter back. Go back to the first Jak game where it was more about your 3D platformer. They try to do the whole weird, more mature M-rated thing with Jak 2 and whatever. Ratchet and Clank, we had one of those on PS5, so there was a thing. But if instead of these live services, even bring back the digital version. I have on disc for the PS3, like the Resistance series. There's a Resistance collection, and then there was a Killzone collection. Tweak them up a little bit, give them a little bit of polish and make them run well on the modern PS5 hardware, release those collections digitally, maybe make a new single player Resistance, make a new single player Killzone games, then they can have their first person shooters like Xbox does. Ridge Racer, why haven't we seen a new Ridge Racer in forever? They used to launch PlayStations with Ridge Racers, man. Ridge Racer. that meme. But Ridge Racer games are fun, I don't know why they sit on those. There's so many of these that, people love Sly Cooper. You can have more family-friendly content. Even going back to, more M-rated stuff. But just, all these games, look at what was on PlayStation 1, 2, 3. There is, again, I played the first world of AstroBot. They had an Ape Escape, really neat level. I never really got into Ape Escape back in the day. I think I played a demo of it and I was like, well, I don't know, whatever. But I know a lot of people love that. And they could come back to that. That would be another family-friendly franchise that they could do. So I don't know what Sony is smoking. Oh, well, we don't know, because again, all these guys, all these damn CEOs and stuff. Oh, let's chase trends and chase monetization. Dude, the praise that AstroBot is getting right now from players, from games media, from pretty much everybody, people just want to have fun again. They want to put in a game, they want to play it. It's not buggy, it's not riddled with bugs. It's not the frame rate is solid. It's colorful, it's bright. It's just, there's not really much other than the lack of certain aspects of accessibility. There's not really a lot I can say bad about it. It's just a damn good game, and I would compare it to a higher tier of even Nintendo platformer. You could compare it to something like Mario Odyssey. Yeah, it's that good. It's just really good. So I hope that, people, we're getting, and then the next game I'm going to talk about, Space Marine 2. That's another kind of more traditional type of game. Excuse me for 1 minute. A little water. And AstroBot is getting free DLC later this year. So again, that's cool. Not only DLC, but free DLC, including like time trials and stuff or speedrun mode. Um, but Space Marine 2 is a game that I really am pretty interested in playing. It's a third person, uh, both melee and shooter game, kind of, in the Gears of War style of gameplay. I do have some potential reservations about accessibility for UI and readability and such from the few things I've seen on Twitter, but I have so many other games I already need to play, and I've heard a little bit of mixed things about. Some people say it runs beautifully on their systems, and some people say it doesn't run so good. So I don't know. Maybe wait for a patch or two. Maybe it'll go on sale sometime before the holiday. It is definitely one I want to play and want to cover for the channel. But Space Marine 2, Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2 looks pretty dang fun and seems like a game that would be right up my alley. And so that's another one that I want to check out. God, I know there was another game that I wanted to mention and I should have wrote it down. But I'm like, oh, I'll remember it. Maybe it'll come back to me. But like I said, there's so many games that are coming out. AAA games, there's a few of those. Lot of indie games coming out, and those are what I'm really going to be concentrating on as well. We got a few Nintendo games. We've got loads of indie stuff. Yeah, I can't remember. There was one other game that I was like, oh, I want to be able to mention this. What was it? And now I can't remember because I thought of it right as I was starting to record the video, and so I already had my notes down. I don't think it was anything that I've covered on the channel already that I can think of. Oh well. But yes, AstroBot video hopefully coming soon. So look forward to that. It's just a really, really cool game. And I really, really hope that it makes not only Sony, but with the praise that this is, people want single player games. They want fun. Not everything has to be, pure open world or, 8,000 repetitive tasks. Oh, that's what it was. That's what it was. Yes, the one other game I wanted to mention, I literally just saw before recording this. I covered Star Wars Outlaws recently on the channel and its accessibility. Unfortunately, it is not playable without sighted assistance for blind players. Even I have trouble with it, especially with the heavy focus on stealth. And most importantly, insta-fail stealth. Now, the stealth missions that I covered when I played it for the video, that one, though that mission did not have instant fail stealth. There was one mission earlier that I had played, and then there was a little bit after doing the video where, yes, there are instant fail stealth missions, and I hate insta-fail stealth missions. That was my biggest problem with the original first two Splinter Cell games. I love the series and the Sam Fisher character and just the gameplay. It's fun. But the stupid instant fail stealth, I hate it. And when they went to Chaos Theory and Deception, yeah, you could get seen, and then enemies would be in alert status, but you would still be able to, hide and try to escape if you could get their alert level back down again, and then be stealthy again. It's just give the flexibility, because that's not how real world. I mean, in real world, I guess that, yeah, they would maybe just shoot you and then boom, I guess it is instant fail. But like, if you have the capacity to get away, to run and hide and get away, it's just much more approachable and friendly and less frustrating. And then you combine that with, oh, you didn't see something, or, you overlooked, you didn't see a guy that was off camera, or, so whatever it is. But I guess in the next week or two and beyond, they are going to be, because I listened to a lot of podcasts too recently since doing the video, and even just a lot of mainstream podcasters and not even focused on accessibility have really been complaining about the instant fail stealth, and it's just like it's one of those antiquated like escort missions where the character can die and you got to babysit them constantly. Nobody enjoys that. That large those were huge in like the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 era days. Pain in the ass missions, I hated them. But you don't see those or if you do see escort missions, they do their own thing, and they look at anything from like the Last of Us series where you don't have to babysit Ellie, or even like Half-Life with the Half-Life 2 with Alex and such. Um, yeah, it may not be as realistic in some ways, but as far as playability and enjoyment of the game, it's way more fun to not have to worry about that piddly crap. Um, and I would say that instant fail stealth is another thing that just needs to get the fuck out of here, because I can't stand it. And honestly, it's really turned me away from Star Wars Outlaws. I actually played a little bit more of it after the video, but I thought, well, maybe I'll reinstall it later, but I need room on my hard drive, and I just really wasn't feeling it. I like the atmosphere, I like the characters, but the gameplay just wasn't doing it for me, and so I uninstalled it. Maybe I'll reinstall it at some point, but I'm glad that they are going back and modifying that. I hope they don't, because they said, well, we don't want to get rid of all of the, um, what's the word? They don't want to just make it trivial. It's like maybe eventually, I'm guessing maybe for some missions, maybe it'll be like, oh, you get seen 3 times and then you fail or something. I still don't really like that, but at least it would be a little better. Again, I really think as far as stealth, just make it flow. I mean, especially you want to play. If they keep touting like, oh well, you play the character you want to be, make choices that blah blah blah. If somebody wants to go in loud, maybe it's harder, but let them do it. If they are sneaking and shit goes bad, and then they are able to go hide again and get back under stealth, let them do that. I mean, it's just much more organic and it's much more fun. So we'll see what happens with that. So yeah, that's those are some of the games I really wanted to quickly talk about before getting into all of the Apple stuff. Oh, and one more thing, 99.99. Anybody remember that day? Can't believe that's 25 years ago. Good God. 99.99, the North American launch of the DreamCast. Sega's last physical console. And what a hell of a console to go out on, because man, I had friends who had the Sega Genesis. I had 2 friends who actually had the Sega Genesis and Sega CD, and I had one friend who had both the Sega CD and the 32X. And everything that Sega was doing, like they had such a strong start with their Genesis. Like I know they had the Master System and whatnot before that, but like the 16-bit days is when Sony and Nintendo were really going at it, and for a couple of years they were doing a really good job. But then they went all this gimmicky stuff, and it's like, oh, you got to get the CD add-on, then you got to get the 32X add-on, and it's just, I don't know. I mean, the CD add-on was kind of cool. There were some neat games for it. The 32X was, I don't know, wasn't great. Um, I still remember the 32X version of Doom and its um, horrendous fart soundtrack. I mean, just go look up the 32X Doom soundtrack, and it sounds just freaking terrible. It's terrible. I mean, I would rather listen to the original Sound Blaster, chintzy Sound Blaster sound than the 32. Oh, it was bad. It was awful. Um, and then they went with the Saturn, and that was sort of harder to program for it, and not near as many people, especially it didn't catch on as much in the US. I mean, I know they had a lot of exclusives in Japan, um, but Sega was in a rough spot, and by the time the Dreamcast came out, we're like, well, what's this gonna be? But I gotta say, the Dreamcast is one of my favorite systems of all time. I love the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo. I had an N64, really like that, despite some of its weaknesses. But damn, like I said, the Dreamcast was Sega's last video game console, and it was so good. It combined, like, there was a lot of innovation in it. It kind of combined, like, you had the best of your late 90s and early 2000s arcade era. You were getting not only essentially perfect arcade ports, but enhanced arcade ports. In some cases, they were better. The Dreamcast games were better than the arcade version. I mean, Soul Calibur that launched with the Dreamcast. I didn't get a Dreamcast on release date, but I got they had a deal on the Sega Sports Edition that came with NBA 2K and NFL 2K. And so to save some money and get a couple basically freebie games, I remember getting that when I was in college. I didn't care about NBA 2K, but NFL 2K blew my mind. And I so miss the 2K series. Damn you, EA and Madden. I mean, the 2K series was a good balance between simulation football and arcade football. Like you could adjust the difficulty, and it was deep enough. But I'm more of an arcade. Like, I love football, but I'm not into all the like designing the plays and audibles and all these other subtle things, which a lot of them you have to be able to see clearly and quickly. So I just like to be able to run and pass and have a good time. Um, but NFL 2K, loved that game back in the day. And even playing like 2K5 on the Xbox. God, I really hope that EA doesn't get to renew their exclusive NFL license. I want to see NFL Blitz come back. Or something like NFL Blitz. I would love to see an NFL 2K game again. Like, and not just, there was some mobile garbage that came out within the last couple of years, and it's just like, again, your stupid, I think it was like your cards, or you build a team, and it's just like, it's your microtransaction horse shit like most things are now. Um, but NFL 2K, man, was great. Soul Calibur, again, it was better than the arcade version because you had the whole arcade mode, but then you had this weapons master mode, which is you had this like world map, and it was almost like a training kind of a thing because you would do these fights and they would have certain conditions like, oh, your health is deteriorating, or you have more armor than they do, or vice versa, or you have to fight 3 or 4 dudes in a row, or you'd have these and you could equip different versions of weapons for each character. And that's why when they released the Xbox Live Arcade re-release of Soul Calibur, I was so disappointed that it was just the arcade mode. It didn't have that weapons master mode. I put a lot of time. Soul Calibur was a beautiful and fun playing game. It was just so good. Um, just reminiscing about the Dreamcast a little bit. I mean, you had your arcade games, but then you had the console. You had a lot of racing games. There was a lot of racing games, fighting games, like Sega Rally 2, Metropolis Street Racer, I believe it was called. Um, the Tony Hawk ports on there were really good. They had better frame rate and they looked a little better, played a little better. Um, I mean, there were just so many. That was when it was before GameFly. There was another rental service where you'd, kind of like when Netflix, you'd rent DVDs in the mail through the mail. I can't remember what it was. Was it no? It wasn't Red Octane or what? Well, there was Red Octane. I did that a little bit, and I did GameFly for a bit. There was Gamerang. Was it Gamerang? Oh God, I haven't thought of that in years. I think it was Gamerang. Um, it was kind of like you could rent your games. You know, if you had a PlayStation, or you couldn't do cartridges because they were bigger and heavier. But disc-based games like Xbox and Dreamcast and stuff, you could rent those. And so, I mean, there was a lot of, like even just kind of arcadey style, like your Dynamite Cop and House of the Dead and all your fighting games, your racing games, Virtua Fighter. You had your Marvel versus Capcom stuff that everybody liked. And then you had Shenmue. Between Soul Calibur and Shenmue and NFL 2K, those three games sold me that system alone. And like I said, I was in college at the time, and I think I must have played through Shenmue that first year it came out probably three different times because I wanted to try to go down different paths and go comb through every little bit of the city to see if there was anything that I missed. And um, I mean, yeah, I did a full playthrough of Shenmue a few years ago on the channel. That one is one of the few I did, and there are some, really kind of antiquated parts to it. There's some pacing issues. The, the voice acting is cheesy to say the least, but looking back on it, I think that's sort of, again, it's so cheesy, it's almost endearing at this point. Um, but the combat, I remember the 70-man battle really blew me away. That was a really cool thing. You go to the arcade and you could literally play old Sega arcade games like Hang On and Space Harrier. The fully voice acted. Again, just being able to like walk around and like go in buildings and like talk to everybody, and they had their own schedules. And you had the martial arts practice, you had the arcade, you had the fighting. Didn't enjoy the QuickTime events. Again, QuickTime events is one of those things that kind of need to die in a fire. Not a big fan of them for the most part. But Shenmue, a lot of good memories with that game. But again, it was all those games that I had rented. There were brawlers, there were ports of PC and other console games like PlayStation games that were up-resed and better ports on the Dreamcast. They looked and ran better. Um, action games, fighting games, it was just a fun system that died way too soon. I remember reading the news story while we were waiting for a college class to start. It's like they launched it 99.99, and it was like February or March, I think it was 2001, when they already announced that they were discontinuing manufacturing, and they were going to be winding down and discontinuing the Dreamcast. Sad thing, because it was on a roll. Like, people loved the system. I never did get a chance to play Seaman, which is this weird thing where you had a microphone in your controller and you were talking to these weird like mutant fish people, and I wish they would release that for the PC and just let you use like a microphone or a headset mic, because that game is just bizarre as hell. I've seen footage of it. The Angry Video Game Nerd did an episode about it. Um, it's just a fascinating, weird game with a horrible name. I mean, Seaman. I mean, I'm not even going to say anything else. You can kind of read between the lines. But I mean, they did fun stuff. They did quirky stuff, just weird stuff on that system. And I miss it. I miss those days. And again, with like the Astro's Playroom and the indie games and stuff like that, I want all the things that we're getting. The accessibility and um, a lot of the things that we get from modern gaming. But I think we have lost a lot, again, especially with games becoming so big and bloated, and oh, well, we can just patch it later online. You know, I kind of like just, getting a linear game and playing it and having fun. Oh, that was the other thing. There was a broadband adapter, but the Dreamcast had, you remember back in my day, they had these things called dial-up modems. Um, but it had a 56K modem built into the Dreamcast, and you could play not the original NFL 2K, but 2K1 and beyond. You could play online. They'd optimized it where it would actually play via dial-up. And then there was a broadband adapter which I never really bought because I really didn't play any online on the Dreamcast. But again, they were ahead of their time. Look at the original Xbox, and then like even the original Xbox, they had Xbox Live partway through that system, and then look at what Xbox 360 did with Xbox Live, and then PlayStation kind of caught up a little bit, and now it's just ubiquitous. It's common. The VMU, the little memory card that had a little tiny D-pad and a little screen on there, so like if you were playing a football game, you could like pick your plays on your VMU so that your opponent couldn't see what play you were picking. Or they had like the Sonic Adventure had a little Chow Garden thingy, which I never really played, but Shenmue, it would show you like where when you were being taught a move, it would say take 2 steps back and then kick, and you could try to do it by listening to your characters in the game. Or on the VMU, you could look down and it would kind of tell you like, oh, press, back, kick or whatever. A lot of innovation, and it was just a really neat console. So I had to talk a little bit, I had to reminisce a little bit about the Dreamcast, because 25 years, I would love a Dreamcast Mini, man. A Dreamcast Mini. I'm not sure what games you'd put on it, because a lot of it is, again, licensing hell. But the Dreamcast was great. So, yeah, that's some gaming stuff. And now we get into the Apple stuff, which is what most people are probably here for. Before I go into the Apple event, I want to briefly touch on iOS 18. And I do want to refer you guys, I'm not going to do a deep dive or anything like that right now. I do want to refer you to the Jonathan Mosen podcast, or Living Blindfully podcast, because he released just a couple days ago, he released an iOS 18 special where he kind of outlined a lot of the new accessibility features, especially ones that pertain to blind and low vision and some hard of hearing in iOS 18. And there were things in there that I didn't even really pick up on. And there's actually a fair bit to be intrigued about, Of course, there are some new magnifier features that Apple called out earlier in the year, I think around WWDC. So I want to play with that more. And then there were Braille screen input. I played with this a while back, but never really just found a use for it. I just never really got into it. But now they're doing a new thing where they've made it easier to use, and they've improved it greatly. And they have a new command that you can use to invoke it, rather than needing to activate it through the rotor every time. And everything, I've heard a couple people even doing the beta test so far, and I have a beta on my iPad, on one of my older iPads, and I should try it out in the next few days. But especially if you're wanting to write something a little bit longer and you don't have a Bluetooth keyboard with you, and I will say too many blind people, and I won't even say blind people because I'm sure a lot of sighted people do it too, but I notice especially a lot of blind people will dictate everything, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. But what I do have a problem with is that people don't know how to use their device. They dictate everything, and they don't know how to use the on-screen keyboard, or they don't proofread. And so, you get adults, you get professional, college age students, you get working adults who send messages that read like they were either badly translated, or that they were written by like a fifth grader because it was like weird spelling and dictation errors. If you're going to dictate, again, you can overlook something. Like, I've made a few typos or missed a couple of dictation mistakes. I'm not saying you have to be perfect, but I see a lot of really badly written content. And, again, whether we want to be or not, we have to be, you know, we're always being scrutinized because, oh, we're blind or we're low vision, and I don't see too many of them out in the world. So it's like, to be taken seriously, especially if you're wanting to get into, if you're wanting to get a job or whatever, um, editing your text, writing writing well, editing it is really important. And the reason I bring that up is because, especially all the things that I've heard about this new upgraded version of the Braille screen input, kind of makes me intrigued, because it seems like it's going to be a lot more seamless. Um, and everyone I've talked to said it works pretty well so far. And with the new gesture, you can just enable it. It would be, again, if I want to write a longer email or something and I'm out and I don't have access to a Bluetooth keyboard on me, this might be a really convenient way, because yes, I can use the on-screen keyboard, but I'm fine at it, but it's not the fastest entry in the world. But if I can get good at Braille typing again, um, that could be neat. There's a lot of audio customizations and like audio mixing now. I guess like you can do a lot more with like not only like the pitch and volume and tone of your voices, but there's like literally like EQ for your voices now, where you can literally like high end and low end and like all kinds of different like stuff that I probably wouldn't even get into. But especially think about, some people hear certain pitches or types of voices much easier, especially if you have hearing loss in addition to vision loss, and that can be very helpful. So that's a really neat feature. The other thing that's kind of cool that I didn't really realize is, you can add multiple voices to your voiceover rotor. Now, I did know you could do that, but I guess in iOS 18 now you can add multiple of the same voice to your rotor. But you can customize aspects of that same voice. So um, let's say I was using the Alex voice, and which is what I use right now. And maybe I would have my regular voice that I use that's fast, and I have punctuation turned down, and I have this, that, and the other things set. But maybe I have another version of that voice that I want to use when I demo it, and I'm working with clients at work. So I want to have a voice. It's the same voice, but it's a little bit slower. Maybe it's got a little bit, maybe my voice has a more intermediate verbosity, whereas the training voice that I would use has more of a beginner verbosity and stuff. Maybe a little bit more punctuation. Um, so those are some really interesting use cases that I'm like, I didn't even think of that, but that's actually kind of cool. So that's another thing you can play with. And they've added apparently a new voiceover tutorial. Now they've always had one, but it was really basic. But I guess this one, I have not gone through it all the way, but this is a pretty dang comprehensive voiceover tutorial. Kind of like when they had the Mac version was more robust, and I guess the iOS one has kind of caught up to that some. So, and it literally has like, "Hey, this is how you do this. Before we let you even move on, you have to successfully perform the gesture." So for any new iOS users out there, or you can kind of get used to your device and supplement that. Maybe you don't need to be with a trainer as much, because you just go through and it teaches you a lot of your core basics of how to navigate. So those are, he mentioned so many others. I mean, I think it was like an over 2 hour long podcast, but I'll try to find the link and put a link in the description below for the Living Blindfully episode for iOS 18. And of course, Apple Viz apparently has launched today. I saw on Twitter they already have a couple new posts up. So Apple Viz is back. Thank you, Be My Eyes. Thank you to that crew for saving and preserving and keeping that site alive. I'm sure a lot of people in the blindness low vision community very much appreciate that, including myself. So yeah, iOS 18, and then those are just some of the accessibility features. And then you have all the other stuff, the mainstream features for iOS 18, which macOS, iOS, watchOS, all of those are coming out September 16th, so about a week from today. So yeah, a lot of stuff there. Now we can get into the Apple event, and I'm not gonna go super into detail for all these, but I do want to elaborate on it because there's a few things that caught my attention that have some interesting potential accessibility benefits that I'm intrigued about. Um, so they started with a cheesy video. It was audio. The event was audio described, but one thing I noticed with this one is the mixing on it wasn't really good. So when they had a video that played music, the music was super loud, and it was almost kind of hard to hear the audio description over the music. I think the music had to be ducked maybe a little bit just so the description could be heard a little better. Um, but we started with Apple Watch. We have the Series 10, which I mean, I'm probably not going to upgrade it right now, but I am intrigued about some of the features. Like, I guess it's got a fair bit bigger screen on it, but it's thinner, and because of the bezels and the way, it doesn't feel a lot bigger. It's more curved instead of cornered edges. It's got this OLED, wide angle OLED as they call it. So basically, they're trying to make it so you're wearing your watch on your wrist, whether you're exercising or your arm is just hanging on the armrest of your chair or whatever. They're trying to make it so that it's brighter when you look at the screen, not just head on, but from an angle, which is what you would often be doing with a watch. That makes sense. Bigger display, better display, makes it easier to write and see things, I guess. And for low vision, that could be something that would be helpful for me. Sleep apnea tracking, that is a new feature of the Series 10. I don't know, that's neat. And they said about 80% of people who maybe have sleep apnea are not diagnosed or they don't know they have it. Um, I don't know. I mean, I've been told I snore like a beast sometimes, so who knows? I don't know if I have a slight sleep apnea or whatever, but um, I've been told I can crank out some serious Z's from time to time, so I guess there's that. But that's a cool thing. Now, again, they've really, Apple seemingly just really leaned into their health benefits of the watch the last few years. They talked about running and swimming and snorkeling and biking, and so there's all that kind of stuff. They still need the musicians thing. They need the drumming. They need the drumming activity. But I mean, they said it was really a lot focused on a little bit on the display, and then a lot of it was focused on like the health aspects and tracking and those things and the sleep apnea. Starting at $399, you can pre-order it today, and it'll be out on the 20th. All of the devices will be coming out on the 20th, but the phones you won't be able to pre-order until Friday. So that's their usual spiel, but everything is going to be released on the 20th. Apple Watch Ultra, they really didn't spend much time on this. $799 starting. They did say that they switched from like the stainless steel to like some titanium thing that's lighter and I guess about as strong or something for both the Series 10 and the I forget what the Ultra is made out of, but you know, they got some colors, they got some new bands and stuff. The Milanese loop I really like, except I'm not going to pay their $150 for the Apple one since I can usually get like a $10 to $12 one on Amazon and they work great. Like the Milanese loops are, I find, to be very comfortable, very easy to put on, very easy to use. I would say it's one of the most comfortable watch bands I've ever had. I've had the little stretchy ones, I've had the belt buckle kind, I've had the, you know, snap into the little holes thing. I've had all those different types of watch bands, and I really like the Milanese loop. But I'll get the cheaper version that is not $150, which is crazy. So yeah, I mean, it's a good upgrade if you're new to an Apple Watch. There's some nice things here. Oh, the other thing that they talked about with the Apple Watch, the one thing I am curious about, they mentioned in the Series 10, and I don't know if this feature is coming to old versions. I don't know why it couldn't, other than Apple being Apple and just wanting to sell you their new model. There was a quick sentence in there where they said, "Oh, you can finally listen to like audiobooks or podcasts using the speaker," because before that, like, you know, you could use voiceover and you could make calls on the watch, but you couldn't listen to music or podcasts or anything unless you paired a Bluetooth headset to the watch. But sometimes that would be convenient, you know, like if I knew that I didn't, you know, I was just going to be somewhere and maybe I want to sit outside, I didn't want to wear headphones or whatever, and for whatever reason, I could just, you know, because surprisingly, the speakers on the Apple Watches have always been pretty good. Like I started out with the Series 3 and then the Series 4, and now I have the Series 8, and even back in the 3 and 4, like the speakers were surprisingly good. So I hope that feature isn't exclusive to the Watch Series 10. So I can't tell you for sure, but we'll see. AirPods, all of those got refreshed. They all have USB-C now instead of Lightning because everything is going to USB-C. The AirPods, they got 2 models of those. All of them will have spatial audio now. USB-C, smaller case. They've got a little speaker for Find My in them. You can nod or shake your head to acknowledge a yes or no question from Siri, apparently. And then there's a regular model for $129, and then there's a noise canceling model for $179. And those you can pre-order today. They're out on the 20th, if I recall. Yeah, so that's cool. But the one feature... Oh, wait, and then there was the AirPod Max, which didn't seem to get any upgrade other than they're releasing USB-C models. And I don't know, man, like, I want to hear what they sound like, but they're $549. Now, I buy some expensive headsets from time to time. I've spent $150, $200, maybe even a little more on headsets before. But $549? Damn, son, those things got to be. And I've heard mixed things. Some people love them, and some people think they are a little flat and not really so great. So they really didn't get any hardware upgrade, but they come in new colors and they have USB-C. Yippee, I guess. But the coolest feature, um, the AirPods Pro line, they have support for, I guess there's a, through your phone, you can use this hearing test feature. It's like a 5-minute test, and it walks you through, and I guess like you listen to, and then you tap the screen when you hear certain tones, and it kind of measures. I guess it's it supports like this medical or this clinical level audio test, hearing test type of deal. And this 5-minute test, it kind of gives you an idea of, oh, maybe you're losing hearing in this frequency or what have you. But on top of that, the AirPods Pro 2, they will use this hearing test, and they've actually added clinical level hearing aid support right into the AirPods. And you don't even, like, once you take the hearing test, it adapts to your hearing, and you don't even have to adjust the settings, which is kind of fascinating. Now, I wonder if I wonder and almost hope that you'll have a little bit of control over that. Like, it'll give you a starting point, then maybe if you can tweak it on your own. I don't know if you have that capability, but that's cool. Hearing aids, anything assistive, adaptive technology is so ungodly expensive. And, I mean, even if you pay, let's say 100 and, did I put the price for the AirPods Pro? I don't remember how much the AirPods Pro are, because there's the AirPods and the AirPods Pro. But even if you're spending, let's say, 250 bucks, and then you have a hearing aid that's built into it, they said moderate to mid-level hearing loss. If you have a really bad hearing loss, you may still need some actual hearing aids. But for a lot of people, maybe even some, like I'm thinking about my dad who has been around farming equipment all of his life, and you can tell he's kind of struggling to hear things a little bit more. Like something like that, might be able to help him out. So that's really kind of cool. Kudos to them for that. Then we get into the iPhone stuff. So iPhone 16 and 16 Plus, you got a 6.1 and a 6.7 inch screen size for options. You have the action button on all of them now, because I don't remember if the 15 did or just the 15 Pro had the action button. But the action button is on all models, and you can set it to, all kinds of different functions. The one thing that I don't know, and it doesn't seem like it's supported, but I would love to see, and you think they could do it with a software update, is to allow it, kind of like you could do with your lock button, where you could do a single tap or a single press or a double tap or a triple press of the action button. So maybe you could map different things, or if you held it. So if I did one press, I could have it do one action. If I did a double press, I could do a different one, and so on and so forth, or holds. That would open just a lot of, you have a physical button, and it would be just a really nice, convenient way, whether it's accessibility features or opening, and, if I could just hit a thing and be like, boom, it'll open up my YouTube music and open my, and randomize my drums playlist, so I could just, let's start playing my drums. Or, whatever it is you wanted to do. Maybe I could have another thing where it would automatically open up Be My Eyes and take a picture. Who knows? Or maybe you would open Voice Dream and open up the scanner feature or whatever. So I'm curious how that's going to go. Well, and then they have this new camera control button, which intrigues me. So you can do like a lighter tap or a full press of the button. So you can, at any time, you can press it and you'll take a picture. You can kind of press and hold. It'll start a video. But then when you're taking a picture, you're in the camera, you can kind of tap and you can swipe side to side and you can like adjust settings or zoom in and out without having to fiddle with on-screen controls. I'm curious if, and I guess third party, they mentioned it was like Instagram or something. Like those apps are going to be able to support it as well to some degree. And I'm wondering if the built-in magnifier app could support the camera control button, because I could see this being really nice where, normally you have the controls on the screen and you can pinch to zoom, you can use the slider to zoom, or you can, you have the controls for switching between the color modes. Well, what if all that could be taken away from the screen if you wanted? And then what if, like, let's say I could slide left and right and that would zoom in and out. But then if I did a light press, and that would switch modes from when I slide on the camera control button. Instead of zooming, it would cycle between the color scheme. So I could literally zoom it in, do a little soft press, and then I could swipe again. And then that way, without my fingers getting in the way, um, I could be able to zoom and change my color contrast. That could be a really neat thing. And I don't know if they would allow it, but one thing I would also love to see is instead of opening the camera app, because I use the magnifier app pretty much daily, instead of opening the camera when I press the camera control button, if I could set it to say, no, open the magnifier instead, and then just, yeah, I could use the action button for it, but especially if the action button doesn't support, single tap, multi-tap, hold, whatever. If it can only do one thing, um, telling the camera control button to open magnifier instead of the camera could be a pretty sweet deal. So I don't know how that's going to work. Then they did their Siri and AI stuff for a bit. They really focused on like personal context, like, oh, you get an address or something and you can have it update your contact card for somebody. Or they had the one thing that I was sort of intrigued about is they had like a vision mode. I forget, I can't remember what they called it, but kind of like a built-in version of what they're doing with Windows Magnifier, or not Windows Magnifier, but with the Magnifier app if you have VoiceOver on. But if you um, going beyond that, like if you they talked about like, oh, you're standing outside of a restaurant that you are unfamiliar with, you take a picture or you hit the button or whatever, and it will pop up like, oh, this is a restaurant, here's the ratings, here's the business hours, and information kind of like that. You're kind of like your augmented reality meets AI type of thing. They did the example of, oh, take a picture of a dog and see what kind it is, or oh, there's a picture of a bike. Where can I find? I want to buy that bike. Kind of doing a little bit of what Google was doing, and a little bit of Be My Eyes in there. And so I don't know. I don't know how useful that's going to be, but in some contexts, I could see that being potentially helpful. Um, So yeah, they went on a little bit more, but I'm not going to go super into AI because again, I don't know how well it's even going to work. Um, iOS 18 is not even going to really have the AI features in it. The first beta features of the AI are going to be coming in sometime in October. So I don't know. We don't even know. I'll have to wait until later to really, because they say one thing, but how well does it work in practice? We'll have to wait and see. But $799 and $899 are the starting prices for your iPhone 18 and 18 Plus phones. Then you have the Pro series. You have the Pro and Pro Max. 6.3 and a 6.9 inch. Good Lord. I mean, the 6.7 that I have for my Pro Max now is big. But I guess the smaller bezels and everything and the lighter titanium, it's not really supposed to feel much bigger than the current phones, and I'm kind of curious to see what reviewers will say about it. Because I want the bigger screen, I want the faster processor for, again, doing the AI stuff, having accessibility running on top of everything, and all that stuff. I'm going to go with the Pro Max because, of course, I am. It's going to have the camera control, the action buttons, all of that stuff is the same. It's got a little bit of a Pro processor instead of the regular processor that the regular iPhone 18s have. It has 3 cameras instead of 2. There's like a wide angle lens or something. They're all like 48 megapixel or something or other. Again, the camera on my 13 Pro Max is really quite good. But people who have had even the iPhone 15 said, "Wow, I'm so impressed with how quickly the focus is, whether doing OCR or using Be My Eyes or magnifier. People are just really impressed with how quickly the 15 camera responds, and I'm sure I will probably notice at least a subtle increase in using, like, again, when I use magnifier a lot, um, having these cameras and super zoom levels, and depending on how the camera button works, I could be intrigued. Um, then they talked about photo and, like, photo stuff, video stuff. And they did this cheesy little movie thing where they have the new like 4K at 120 frames per second. So, like, you can do slow motion video, and you can even kind of, after you've recorded a video, you can kind of slow it down under post production. But they did this like cheesy, like, 2 dudes running away from or walking away from an explosion, as you see in so many movies, and they just did it so cheesy. But I mean, I don't know, it's cool. And then they shot some music video in slow motion and whatnot for a music video. Again, I think that'll be cool, but it's not something that I will likely use, I don't think. But just for a clearer camera, better camera, if I record YouTube videos or such, that'll be fine. Then they talked about voiceover mixing, and not voiceover like the accessibility feature, but like voice, better clarity. There's 4 microphones. It's supposed to be a lot better. And then there's like a mixing feature where if you're doing video, you can have it more of like a clear thing where it'll just focus on the audio will pick up, like, even if there's, let's say you're shooting a video focusing on somebody and then there's background noise or somebody talking off to the side, you can have a mode where the audio will focus on just the person that you're looking at, or you can have it more of like a flat audio level, or you can have it more of like a movie level where just the sound, it focuses, and I don't know, I don't know how to explain it, but there's different mixing modes essentially on how you want it to recognize and process audio. And the other thing they talked about was for voice memos, there's a feature coming later. It's not going to be at launch, I don't think, but like later this year, they're adding an updated feature in voice memos where you can have a recording, and then you can layer on an additional recording to it. So for musicians, it's like, oh, somebody plays a guitar, and then, oh, okay, I have the guitar, and then I can do a separate recording track of me singing over it. And that's all without using headphones, I guess. I don't know how clear, or I don't know how good that's going to be. But potentially, even just for getting, like, even if it's not, it's probably not going to be, production quality to release an album. But like, if let's say you're a musician and you want to get the gist of something down so you don't forget, and then you can share it with the rest of your bandmates and go, hey, I came up with a new song, let's check this out. You could lay down the guitar track and then just do like a rough singing over it, and then that could be your combined voice notes. So then, there's definitely uses for that. um I could see that being, what that would also be really neat for is, let's say that you were recording. Well, no, I was thinking video, because audio voice notes. I was thinking about laying down an extra audio descriptive track, but that's more for video. But I'm sure people will come up with all kinds of creative uses for that. So I don't know. That could be a neat thing. Um, of course, all the phones they talked about having better battery life, quicker charging. Of course, your faster processors, yada yada. They talked about ray tracing in some games, AAA games coming to mobile, and they support controllers now. Which, again, if I had full usable vision, I might be more interested in that. But playing a AAA game with their often tiny text on even a 7-inch screen, essentially, maybe not. Um, but I mean, it's cool that you can do it, I guess. And that's kind of the Apple event. 909, was it starting 999 and 1199 for the Pro and Pro Max. So yeah, I'm going to be spending a fair bit of money on the iPhones probably later this month. They did mention, though, if you have an iPhone 13 or newer, or was it 12 or newer or 13 or newer, you can get, depending on the model, between 800 and like $700 or $800 or more trade-in value, which I don't know. I might do that, but I might just keep my current one, because I might donate it to my dad, because he's got a weird speaker issue with his older phones. So I might be able to get him the phone, and then I'll just eat the cost. And it's like, hey, okay, here, the 13 Pro Max would be plenty good for my dad. So we'll see what I'm going to do. But for people who want to get a trade-in, that's actually a really, really nice trade-in value. So yeah, I mean, with the Jonathan Mosen podcast, the Living Blindfully with iOS 18, and just highlighting a lot of those accessibility features in iOS 18. Again, a lot of these new phones, they really boil down to faster processor. This one's got the camera button. That's the new thing, because we had the action button last year. So we got the camera button, better cameras, of course. And then just, it's not really all that different. But I'm 3-4 years, my phone is 3-4 years old. It does not support any of the AI features, so I'm going to have to upgrade for that. The better camera will definitely help me for OCR and for video recording, but especially Windows Magnifier, so that'll be really nice. So yeah, I mean, I think there's enough there for me to think about upgrading my phone this year. It's like, well, I could maybe push it one more year, but I think this year would be a pretty good year to upgrade, because I've even in iOS 17, VoiceOver gets a little sluggish when some apps are open sometimes, so I'm thinking that'll run a lot better. If you have an iPhone 14 or 15, if you have an iPhone, I mean, if you really, really want the AI stuff, maybe upgrade if you have a 14. But even then, like, I'm not super sold on what Apple's doing with their AI. It could be useful, but it's even going to take time to, like, they're not even going to roll out all the features probably this fall. We're probably going to get some of these features they've been touting sometime in 2025. So if you have a 14 or 15, um, you might even just wait until, the 15 you'll support the AI, the 15 Pro. Um, but I'm guessing, even the 14 should run. Like I got my work phone is an iPhone 14 Pro Max, and I'm sure that'll run iOS 18 perfectly fine. But since Apple's really rolling out their AI stuff slowly, I don't know that I would be in a huge hurry to do it. Like I said, performance-wise, mine's getting a little, I would like it to work a little better, so I will upgrade more than likely. But um, of course, they're going to come out with a new phone next year, new series of phones, but who knows what they're going to be like. Um, and a lot of the AI stuff that we want to use as blind visually impaired users, we can already do that on our current phones because we're using Seeing AI. We're using Be My Eyes. We're using Envision. We're using Ira. All these different accessibility apps already, use ChatGPT or other AI sources that we can already currently use now. So, if you're wanting to do the blindness AI stuff, although those types of features, we're already doing that now. So there's really not a reason to upgrade for that reason per se. But yeah, that is, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. A lot more positive this time. We got some good games coming out. We got some decent events. We got some new hardware coming out, depending on what you're in the market for. Happy 25th birthday to the DreamCast, a really great little system. And yeah, I'm going to hopefully try to find some more time to play AstroBot and some other stuff, because I have a whole backlog of things I want to do videos for and even just play for myself yet. So anyway, we'll wrap it up here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a like if you did. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, twitch.tv/illegally-cited, illegally-cited.com, and right here on YouTube. And until next time, I will chat with everybody again later.